Escalating tensions. Ambassador Amara Singh strode into the Grand Galactic Council chamber, her footsteps echoing on the polished marble floor. The murmurs of hundreds of alien diplomats filled the air, their eyes following her every move. Amara knew what they saw. A mere human, young and presumptuous, daring to challenge the established order. But they did not see the steel beneath her silk sari, or the brilliant mind behind her dark eyes. They did not know of the countless hours she had spent poring over data, connecting the dots between seemingly random pirate attacks on human colonies, and they certainly had no idea about the contingency plans she and her fellow humans had carefully laid out. Amara took her place at the petitioner's podium, the holographic displays springing to life around her. "Esteemed counselors," she began, her voice calm and clear. "For years, the human worlds have been plagued by increasingly bold and sophisticated pirate raids. These criminals have looted our resources, destroyed our infrastructure, and taken our people as slaves." She paused, letting her words sink in. Some counselors had the grace to look uncomfortable. Others appeared bored, as if they had heard it all before. "The Council has always maintained that these are the actions of a few lawless individuals, outside your jurisdiction," Amara continued. "But today, I bring before you incontrovertible evidence that these pirates have been actively supported and supplied by certain Council member species." The chamber erupted in shouts of outrage and denial. Amara stood firm, her gaze unwavering. With a flick of her wrist, she sent the damning evidence to every counselor's personal display. Sensor logs of council ships in pirate territory, financial records of arms sales, even comm intercepts of council officials directing pirate strikes. "This body's inaction has cost human lives," Amara said, her voice rising above the din. "We have pleaded for justice, for security, yet our cries have fallen on deaf ears. But no more." She drew herself up to her full height, fixing the Grand Counselor with a steely glare. "Consider this our final warning. If the Council does not take immediate action to dismantle these pirate networks and bring the guilty parties to justice, the Terran Alliance will have no choice but to take matters into our own hands. We are prepared to do whatever it takes to defend our people, even if it means war." Silence fell like a leaden shroud. Many counselors stared at Amara in shock, some in outrage, a few in grudging respect. She had just done the unthinkable. A mere human, threatening the galaxy's great powers with war. The Grand Counselor, an ancient insectoid Kildar, chittered nervously. "Ambassador Singh, surely you cannot be serious. A war would be disastrous for your species. The Council commands forces beyond your comprehension. This pirate problem, while regrettable, hardly justifies such drastic action." Amara smiled coldly. "You underestimate us at your peril, Counselor. We humans are full of surprises." With that, she turned on her heel and marched out, leaving chaos in her wake. The first seeds had been planted. Now it was time for the real work to begin. In a darkened room hidden deep within the human embassy, Amara met with her true allies, not diplomats, but warriors and spies, the hidden vanguard of humanity's interests. At the head of the table sat Admiral Nasser Okafor, his hulking frame ill-suited to the delicate chair. The Council reacted as expected, Amara reported, taking her seat. Dismissive, but unsettled. They know something is coming, but they don't know how hard we can hit them. Nasser grinned, his teeth flashing white against his dark skin. "The fools have grown complacent, secure in their supposed superiority," he rumbled. "They're in for a rude awakening." Amara nodded. "Our agents are in place. The fleet is ready. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." As she met the eyes of each man and woman around the table, Amara saw the same fire burning in their eyes, a fierce determination, a hunger for justice too long denied. The Council had sown the wind, and now they would reap the whirlwind. No one could say that they hadn't been warned. Covert preparations, light years away from the political intrigues of the Galactic Council, A nondescript freighter drifted through the inky void of space. To any casual observer, it would appear to be just another battered merchantman plying the trade routes between the stars. But appearances can be deceiving. Deep within the bowels of the ship, Admiral Nasser Okafor stood before a holographic display, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Around him, the cavernous cargo bay had been transformed into a bustling command center, filled with state-of-the-art tactical displays and rows of grim-faced officers. This was no ordinary freighter. It was a Trojan horse, a hidden dagger pointed at the heart of the complacent council. And it was just one of many. For months now, Nasser and his team had been quietly preparing for the inevitable conflict. Under the guise of expanding trade routes and diplomatic missions, they had been steadily moving assets into position, building up a secret war machine right under the Council's noses. It hadn't been easy. The Council's intelligence networks were vast and well-funded, but they were also predictable, geared towards monitoring the grand machinations of rival species, not the subtle movements of lowly humans, and therein lay humanity's greatest advantage. Status report, Nasser barked, his voice cutting through the controlled chaos of the command deck. All ships in position, sir, replied Commander Zora Mikhailov, his second in command. The Odin, the Gilgamesh, and the Anansi have all checked in. They're ready to launch on your command. Nasser nodded, his eyes still fixed on the glowing lines of the tactical display. Each ship represented months of careful planning, of clandestine recruitment and training, of advanced weapons and systems painstakingly developed in hidden research facilities. The Odin, a massive dreadnought bristling with railguns and missile batteries, designed to go toe-to-toe with the Council's mightiest warships. The Gilgamesh, a nimble strike carrier packed with advanced fighters and bombers, ready to sow chaos behind enemy lines. And the Anansi, a stealth frigate equipped with the latest in electronic warfare and hacking tech, capable of turning the Council's own systems against them. Together, they formed the core of humanity's secret fleet, a force capable of striking hard and fast at the Council's most vulnerable points. And they were just the tip of the spear. What about our ground assets? Nasser asked, turning to face another officer. Ready and waiting, sir, replied Major Sanjay Patel, a wiry man with a neatly trimmed beard. We have elite strike teams embedded on key Council worlds, ready to sabotage critical infrastructure and sow chaos at a moment's notice. And our network of local resistance cells is primed to rise up and support our advance. Nasser allowed himself a small smile. The Council had long dismissed humans as a minor player on the galactic stage, a young and naive species still finding its way. They had no idea of the depths of human resolve, of the burning desire for justice and self-determination that drove them. They were about to learn, the hard way. Commander Mikhailov, put me through to Ambassador Singh, Nasser ordered. Moments later, Amara's face appeared on the main view screen, her expression calm and focused. Admiral, she greeted him. I take it the preparations are complete. Affirmative, Nasser replied. We are ready to strike at your word. Amara nodded, her eyes hardening. Good. The Council remains intransigent. They refuse to see the threat right in front of their eyes. I will make one final attempt at diplomacy, but we both know how that will end. Nasser finished for her. Indeed, Amara said with a mirthless smile. In that case, you have my authorization to initiate the first phase of the plan. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is truly made of. As the screen went blank, Nasser turned back to his waiting crew, his heart pounding with a heady mix of anticipation and trepidation. They were about to embark on a course of action that would change the face of the galaxy forever, for good or for ill. But there could be no turning back now. The die had been cast. The future of humanity would be forged in the crucible of war. You heard the ambassador, Nasser said, his voice ringing out across the command deck. Initiate Phase 1. Let's show these Council bastards what we're made of. As one, the crew leaped into action, their faces set with grim determination. The time for hiding was over. The time for battle had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The precipice. The Galactic Council chamber was in an uproar. Holographic displays flashed with urgent news reports, each more dire than the last. Pirate attacks had reached a new level of brutality, culminating in a devastating strike on the human trade hub of Proxima Station. Thousands were dead. The station left a gutted ruin. But it was the identity of the attackers that had sent shockwaves through the chamber. This is an outrage. Ambassador Amara Singh's voice cut through the clamor like a whip. These were no mere pirates. They were wearing the uniforms of the Kyrax Imperium. She thrust a finger at the Kyrax delegation, her eyes blazing with fury. Your forces, Counselor Zolox, were seen leading the attack. They slaughtered innocent civilians, destroyed vital infrastructure. This was an act of war. Zolox, a hulking reptilian clad in elaborate armor, rose from his seat, his scales rippling with disdain. You dare accuse the Imperium on the basis of a few grainy videos and the testimony of traumatized survivors. This is clearly a ploy to deflect blame from your own security failures. Amara's face contorted with rage. We have sensor logs, comm records, even DNA evidence from the bodies of your so-called pirates. The truth is undeniable. The Imperium, and by extension this council, is complicit in these attacks. She turned to face the Grand Counselor, her voice dripping with contempt. And yet, I have no doubt that you will once again choose to do nothing. To hide behind procedure and platitudes while human blood is spilled. The Grand Counselor shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his compound eyes darting between Amara and Zolox. Ambassador Singh, we understand your grief and anger, but we must not rush to judgment. The Council will investigate these allegations thoroughly. Enough. Amara slammed her fist on the podium, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent chamber. We have had enough of your investigations, your empty promises. The human worlds have suffered under these depredations for too long. We demand justice, and we demand it now. She drew herself up to her full height, her voice ringing with the weight of finality. This is your last chance. Stand with us. Condemn these attacks. Bring the perpetrators to justice, no matter how high up the chain of command they may be. Prove that this council stands for more than just pretty words. A heavy silence descended on the chamber. Every eye was fixed on the Grand Counselor, awaiting his response. But Amara already knew what he would say. She could see it in the nervous twitch of his antennae, the way his claws fidgeted with his ceremonial sash. The council was too set in its ways, too beholden to the interests of its most powerful members. They would not risk a confrontation with the Kyrax Imperium, not even in the face of such blatant aggression. And that was exactly what she had been counting on. The Grand Counselor cleared his throat, his voice wavering. Ambassador Singh, the Council shares your desire for justice, but we must approach this matter with care and deliberation. Hasty action could lead to even greater bloodshed. We will convene a special investigative committee. Save your breath. Amara cut him off, her voice cold as the void. I see now that there will be no justice here. Only more delays, more excuses. She reached into her robes and withdrew a small crystalline device. Every security system in the chamber immediately locked onto her, threat assessment AIs whirring to life. But Amara simply held the device aloft, her face a mask of grim determination. This is a hyperwave communicator, linked directly to the human fleet. With a single word, I can send a signal that will launch a full-scale military response against the Kyrax Imperium, and any who stand with them. Gasps of shock and outrage filled the chamber. Zolox leaped to his feet, his claws flexing menacingly. You wouldn't dare. Your pitiful fleet would be crushed in an instant. But Amara simply smiled, a cold, predatory grin that sent shivers down the spines of every counselor present. You have no idea what we are capable of. While you have been content to dismiss us as primitives, we have been preparing for this day. Our ships are armed with weapons beyond your imagining. Our soldiers trained in tactics that will leave your forces in disarray. She turned back to the Grand Counselor, her eyes hard as diamonds. "This is your final warning. Stand down the Kyrax forces, submit to a full investigation, or face the consequences." But even as she spoke the words, Amara knew what the response would be. The Council was too proud, too set in its ways to ever submit to the demands of a supposedly inferior species. They would call her bluff, confident in their own supremacy. And that would be their undoing. With a heavy heart, Amara activated the communicator. "Admiral Okafor, initiate the first strike." The die had been cast. The Terran Alliance was at war. Blitzkrieg. The first blow came without warning, a precisely coordinated strike that left the Council reeling. Human stealth ships, long hidden in the depths of space, suddenly emerged from their cloaks and unleashed a torrent of destruction upon key Kyrax military installations. Shipyards, supply depots, command centers, all were targeted with ruthless efficiency. The pride of the Kyrax fleet, caught at anchor and unprepared for battle, found itself under a withering hail of railgun fire and fusion missiles. Mighty warships, the terror of 1,000 systems, were reduced to drifting hulks in mere moments. It was a textbook application of the old human military doctrine of shock and awe, updated for the galactic stage, and it was brutally effective. Aboard the TAS Odin, the flagship of the human fleet, Admiral Nasser Okafor watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. The Kyrax were scrambling to respond, but they were already too late. The initial strike had crippled their ability to mount an effective defense. "Status report," he barked, his eyes never leaving the screens. 80% of priority targets neutralized. Commander Mikhailov reported, her fingers flying over her console. Kyrax fleet assets reduced by 62%. Minimal casualties on our side. Nasser nodded, allowing himself a small smile. "Better than expected. It seems our new torpedo drones are even more effective than the simulations suggested." The torpedo drones had been one of humanity's secret weapons, a product of years of clandestine research and development. Small, stealthy, and packed with advanced AI, they were capable of slipping past even the most sophisticated defenses and delivering their payloads with pinpoint accuracy. And they were just one of many technological marvels that the human fleet had brought to bear. From adaptive shielding that could shrug off the Council's most potent energy weapons, to quantum-entangled communication systems that allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances, humanity had quietly leapfrogged the galactic superpowers in military capability. But technology alone would not win this war. Nasser knew that the real key to victory lay in the courage and skill of his crews, and in the brilliant strategic mind of Ambassador Amara Singh. Even now, as the battle raged around them, Amara was hard at work on the diplomatic front, using her intimate knowledge of Council politics to sow confusion and division among humanity's enemies. "Admiral, I have Ambassador Singh on the line," one of the communications officers reported. Nasser nodded. "Put her through." Amara's face appeared on the main view screen, looking slightly haggard but fiercely determined. Behind her, Nasser could see the chaotic bustle of the human embassy. Copy-Retry Claude's response was limited as it hit the maximum length allowed at this time. Opened with the human fleet launching a surprise attack, crippling the Kyrax fleet with advanced weapons like torpedo drones. Amara worked to sow division among the Council species. I'll continue with Part 5 now, showing some Council species defecting to the human side as the Council's power structure crumbles under the human assault. Let me know if you would like me to elaborate on any parts of the story so far. Turning the tide. In a secret bunker deep beneath the surface of Kyrax Prime, Emperor Zolox paced before his assembled war council, his tail lashing angrily behind him. The reports scrolling across the holographic displays were grim. The Kyrax fleet was in ruins, their supply lines cut, their colonies under siege. How could this happen? Zolox snarled, rounding on his generals. You assured me that the humans were weak, that their technology was no match for ours. General Kraxus, a battle-scarred veteran of 100 campaigns, bowed his head in shame. "We underestimated them, my lord. Their weapons, their tactics, they are unlike anything we have ever faced. We thought they were primitives, but in truth, they had surpassed us long ago." Zolox's eyes narrowed to slits. "And what of our allies? Why have they not come to our aid?" "My lord," Craxus hesitated, "there are reports. Defections. The Zithari and the Balaxians have declared neutrality, and the Quarax, they have openly sided with the humans." Zolox let out a roar of rage, slamming his fist into the display table. The holographic maps flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. "Traitors," he hissed. "Cowards. They will all pay for this betrayal." But even as he spoke, Zolox knew that his words rang hollow. The tide of the war had turned against them, and with each passing day, more and more of the Council's member species were abandoning the sinking ship. Some, like the Quarax, had long resented the dominant species' iron grip on galactic affairs, and saw in humanity a chance to upend the status quo. Others, like the Zithari, simply sought to distance themselves from what they saw as a losing cause. But all were united in their realization that the old order was crumbling, and that a new power was rising to take its place. Amidst the chaos and confusion, one voice rose above the rest, that of Ambassador Amara Singh, the architect of humanity's grand strategy. In a series of broadcasts that reached every corner of the galaxy, she laid out her vision for a new galactic order, one in which all species would have a say, and none would be left to suffer under the boot of oppression. For too long, the Council has been a tool of the powerful, a means for the strong to exploit the weak, she declared, her voice ringing with conviction. But no more. Humanity stands ready to forge a new path, one based on cooperation, on equality, on the fundamental rights of all sentient beings. To those who would stand with humanity, she offered the hand of friendship, a promise of a brighter future. And to those who would oppose them, a warning. "The old ways are dying," she said, her eyes hard as steel. "Those who cling to them will be swept aside by the rising tide of change. But for those with the courage to embrace a new dawn, the future is limitless." Her words found receptive ears in the hearts of countless beings across the galaxy, those who had long yearned for change, but lacked the strength to bring it about. And as more and more flocked to humanity's banner, the once invincible Council found itself facing a true existential threat. On the front lines, the human fleet continued its relentless advance, smashing through Chirax's defenses with seeming ease. Admiral O'Keffer led from the front, his tactical brilliance and indomitable will an inspiration to all who served under him. But even as victory seemed within grasp, O'Keffer couldn't shake a sense of unease. The Chirax were a proud and fierce species, not prone to surrender. And the Council, for all its faults, had held sway over the galaxy for millennia. Could they really be brought low so quickly? His suspicions seemed confirmed when an emergency comm from the Odin's sensors reached him. "Admiral, we're detecting a massive energy signature from the direction of the galactic core. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Okafor frowned. The Council's last resort, perhaps. Some kind of doomsday weapon. He shook his head. "Whatever it is, we can't take the chance. All ships, full combat alert. And get me Ambassador Singh. We need to know what we're dealing with." As the human fleet moved to confront this new threat, O'Keffer couldn't shake the feeling that the true test was yet to come. They had come so far, achieved so much, but the final battle still lay ahead, and the price of victory might be higher than any of them had ever imagined. A new order. Ambassador Amara Singh stared out the viewport of her shuttle at the assembling armada, a sense of awe and trepidation warring in her heart. Ships of every size and configuration filled the void, from the sleek battlecruisers of the Terran Alliance to the bulbous bioships of the Quarax, all united under a common banner. Her banner. It was a responsibility she had never sought, a burden she had never wanted to bear. But fate, it seemed, had a way of choosing its own champions. Ambassador. The voice of Admiral Okafor crackled over the calm, tense, and urgent. The Council fleet has emerged from hyperspace. They're massing near the galactic core. Amara sighed. She had known this moment would come, had planned and prepared for it. But now that it was here. Numbers, she asked, dreading the answer. At least 10,000 ships, Okafor reported grimly. Everything they have left. And at their center, some kind of massive construction. Our sensors can't make sense of it. Amara closed her eyes, a chill running down her spine. The Council's last gambit, their final desperate attempt to cling to power. She had no idea what they had unleashed, but she knew it boded ill for all of them. Hold position, she ordered. Let them come to us. And patch me through to the fleet. Moments later, her face appeared on view screens across the Armada, her expression calm and resolute. This is Ambassador Amara Singh to all Allied ships, she began, her voice steady. The Council has made its move. They seek to crush us, to maintain their grip on the galaxy through fear and force. They believe that their might gives them the right to rule over us all. She paused, letting her words sink in. But they are wrong. Strength comes in many forms, in unity, in purpose, in the courage to stand for what is right. And today, we have all of those in abundance. She gestured to the ships around her, a fierce pride welling in her chest. Look at what we have built. A coalition of the willing, of those who believe in a better tomorrow. Species that were once bitter enemies, now fighting side by side for a common cause. This is the power of our dream, the strength of our conviction. Her eyes hardened. The Council believes that they can take that away from us, that they can shatter our alliance with one final show of force. But they underestimate us. They always have. She leaned forward, her gaze intense. Today, we show them the truth. We show them that the old ways are gone, and a new order has risen to take their place. An order founded on equality, on justice, on the fundamental rights of all sentient beings. And we show them that we will fight for that order, with every fiber of our being. That we will never back down, never surrender, never stop striving for a better galaxy. In the silence that followed her words, Amara could feel the weight of history upon her, the hopes and dreams of countless billions. It was a heavy burden, but one she would gladly bear. To your stations, she said at last, her voice ringing with finality. And may fortune favor the brave. As the fleet moved into battle formation, Amara settled back in her seat, her mind already racing with strategies and contingencies. The Council had numbers on their side, and the mysterious weapon at their core. But humanity had faced long odds before, and prevailed. And they would do so again. They had to. For the sake of all they had fought for, all they had sacrificed, failure was not an option. The battle that followed was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The Council fleet, vast and implacable, surged forward with the inexorable might of a tidal wave, seeking to overwhelm the Allied forces with sheer numbers. But the Allies met them head-on, their advanced tech and unorthodox tactics sowing chaos and confusion in the Council ranks. Human torpedo drones darted through the enemy formations, striking at key targets with pinpoint precision. Korax bioships spewed clouds of corrosive spores that ate through hulls and scrambled sensors. Zithari phase jumpers blinked in and out of existence, wreaking havoc behind enemy lines. And at the heart of it all, the human fleet pressed forward with unyielding determination, their ships a shining lance aimed at the heart of the Council's power. But even as they advanced, the true nature of the Council's final weapon began to reveal itself. A massive construct of ancient technology and eldritch energies, it pulsed with a sickly light that seemed to twist the very fabric of space around it. And as it activated, the Allied fleet found itself facing a horror beyond imagining. Waves of distorted gravity lashed out from the construct, tearing ships apart like paper. Beams of entropy seared across the battlefield, leaving nothing but dust in their wake. The very laws of physics seemed to unravel, as if the construct was imposing its own twisted reality on the universe itself. Amara watched in horror as Allied ships vanished by the dozen, consumed by forces beyond comprehension. Even the mighty Odin, pride of the human fleet, was rocked by the onslaught, its shields straining to the breaking point. All ships, fall back. Admiral Okafor's voice crackled over the comm, strained and desperate. Regroup at the rally point. We can't take much more of this. But Amara shook her head, a calm certainty settling over her. They could not run, not now. Not with so much at stake. Negative, Admiral, she said, her voice steady. We hold the line. We have to give the boarding teams more time. For even as the battle raged around them, a small force of elite human and Allied soldiers had managed to infiltrate the Council's dreadnought, fighting their way towards the construct's control center. It was a desperate gamble, but one that might just pay off. If they could take the construct offline, shut down its reality warping fields, the Council's last hope would be extinguished. The war would be as good as won. But they needed time. Time bought with the blood and courage of the fleet. And so they fought on, against impossible odds, against an enemy that seemed to command the very forces of the universe. Ships died by the score, brave crews consigned to the void. But still they held, a wall of defiance against the onrushing tide. On the dreadnought, the boarding teams fought with equal tenacity, cutting through the Council's elite guards like a hot knife through butter. Leading the charge was Sergeant Kai Tanaka, a veteran of 100 battles, his eyes cold and hard as he gunned down foe after foe. At last, they'd reached the control center, a vast chamber pulsing with eldritch energies. And there, at its heart, the Grand Counselor himself, his form twisted and distorted by the construct's power. You are too late, he rasped, his voice echoing with the weight of millennia. The convergence cannot be stopped. The old order will be restored, and you will be nothing but dust. Kai said nothing. He simply raised his rifle and fired. The counselor staggered, his form flickering. But he did not fall. With a snarl of rage, he lashed out with tendrils of dark energy, flinging Kai and his team across the room like ragdolls. Foolish primitives, he hissed. You cannot hope to comprehend the forces you toy with. The convergence is the will of the universe itself, the inevitable tide of destiny. You cannot fight it. You can only be consumed by it. But Kai was already moving, the cold determination driving him on. He knew what he had to do, the sacrifice that was required. With a final defiant yell, he leaped forward, tackling the counselor with all his strength. The two grappled, energies crackling around them. And then, with a blinding flash, they were gone, consumed by the construct's raging power. For a moment, silence reigned. Then, with a shuddering groan, the construct began to collapse in on itself, its energies dissipating like mist in the sun. Across the battlefield, Council ships went dark, their crews surrendering en masse as the realization of their defeat sank in. It was over. The war was won. The old order had fallen, and a new one, forged in the crucible of conflict, had risen to take its place. In the aftermath, as the Allied fleet licked its wounds and the surrender of the Council was formalized, Amara found herself at the center of a storm of activity. There were treaties to be signed, new governments to be formed, 1,001 details to be settled. But through it all, one thought kept coming back to her, a nagging worry that would not let her rest. They had won, yes, but at what cost? The scars of the war would linger long in the galaxy's memory, a testament to the price of change. And the construct, the convergence, what had it truly been? Some relic of a forgotten age, a weapon of unimaginable power, or something more, a glimpse of the forces that lurked in the dark places of the universe, waiting to be unleashed. Amara didn't know, but as she looked out over the celebrating crowds, the cheering soldiers and the jubilant diplomats, she couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. For this was not an ending, she realized. It was a beginning. the first step on a long and uncertain road, a road that would test them all, and forge the future of the galaxy itself. The end.